the shadow you can't escape. When the soul begins its descent into light, there's a kind of shift that doesn't look like awakening. It doesn't come with peace, clarity, or cosmic bliss. It doesn't feel like expansion or alignment. Instead, it feels like everything is collapsing. You lose your sense of direction. The things that used to bring you joy feel hollow, meaningless. The people around you can't seem to understand what's happening to you. And even you struggle to explain it to yourself. This isn't just a bad week or a dark night of the ego. This is something deeper. This is a rare, sacred, and terrifying process, a dark spiritual shift. Not everyone goes through this, not in this lifetime. But when it begins, it doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't wait for the perfect timing. It pulls you inward, downward, into parts of yourself you didn't even know existed. And while it may feel like you're lost or breaking apart, what's really happening is far more profound. You are being reconstructed from the inside out. You are being stripped of illusions, identities, and attachments you didn't even know you were holding. This is not a punishment. This is a sacred invitation, but only if you're ready to see it that way. The first sign you're in a rare, dark spiritual shift is that your inner world becomes louder than your outer one. And I don't mean you're hearing voices or having visions, though that can happen for some. I mean the internal pressure begins to outweigh your external life. You could be doing everything right. You might have the job, the partner, the spiritual practice, the community, and yet you feel this growing heaviness inside. This sense that none of it is real anymore, that something is off. Your intuition starts to override logic, but not in the graceful, enlightened way you hoped. Instead, it feels like confusion, like unexplainable grief, like a strange homesickness for something you've never experienced in this life. You begin to withdraw, not because you're depressed, but because your soul is preparing to show you something inside, something raw. And the deeper you go, the more you realize this isn't about fixing your life. This is about undoing everything that was never true to begin with. It's deeply uncomfortable because it threatens the foundation you built your identity on. But here's the paradox. The more it hurts, the closer you are to what's real. Another sign is the collapse of meaning. And I mean that literally. Things that once gave you purpose start to feel empty. You question the teachings you once followed. You doubt the practices that once centered you. You may even feel betrayed by your own beliefs. And that's terrifying, because in the early stages of awakening, we often attach to new spiritual frameworks to replace the old ones we've outgrown. But a dark spiritual shift goes a step further. It's not just about replacing one belief system with another. It's about transcending belief itself. You are being asked to sit in the void, without answers, without meaning, without guarantees. And for most people, that's unbearable. So we try to fill it. We reach for distractions, books, rituals, courses, conversations, numbing behaviors, anything to avoid the silence that's now echoing through our being. But the void is sacred. It's the place where truth is born, and most won't stay long enough to hear it. But if you do, if you surrender to the emptiness without demanding it makes sense, you'll begin to feel something new. Not a concept, not a teaching. A presence, a knowing that doesn't speak in words. That's when you know you're not falling apart. You're falling into something ancient, something that's been waiting for you to stop pretending you had it all figured out. Then comes the isolation. This is one of the most painful signs, and yet one of the most necessary. You begin to feel cut off from others, even from people you love. And it's not because you're better than them. It's because your frequency is shifting so drastically you literally can't maintain the same energetic contracts anymore. Conversations feel shallow. Small talk feels impossible. You try to explain what you're going through, but the words don't land. People either think you're going crazy or they throw spiritual cliches at you that only make it worse. So you withdraw further. You might even feel abandoned by the universe itself. But what's really happening is a sacred cocooning. You are being pulled into the womb of your own soul, not to be punished, but to be rewired. Your nervous system is recalibrating. Your perceptions are being cleansed. Old karmic ties are dissolving. And this can't happen in the noise. It needs stillness. It needs aloneness. It needs you to stop looking outside and finally turn inward. And yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's brutal. But solitude is the forge where your next self is being shaped. You are not being left behind. You are being prepared. And finally, your dreams begin to change. Your sleep becomes a portal. You start having vivid, symbolic, sometimes terrifying dreams that feel more real than waking life. You might dream of death, of ancient places, of strange beings, of falling endlessly into blackness. These are not random. These are messages. Your subconscious is opening ancient doors that have been sealed for lifetimes. You are remembering fragments of your soul's journey, sometimes as metaphor, sometimes as memory. And this is not something to analyze with your mind. It's something to feel, to honor, to witness. Because in a dark spiritual shift, your soul is not just evolving, it's retrieving pieces of itself that were left behind. And that retrieval can be chaotic. It can come with fear, resistance, even physical symptoms. But if you can lean in, if you can trust that what's rising is not here to destroy you but to reintegrate you, you'll begin to understand the depth of what's happening. This is not a normal upgrade. This is not a trendy awakening. This is a rare, sacred, soul-level metamorphosis. And if it's happening to you, you didn't choose it randomly. You were called. The only question is, will you answer? The soul's descent, why everything feels broken, and why that's a sacred sign you're closer than you think. When you're deep in a rare, dark spiritual shift, everything that once felt stable begins to unravel. It's not just your job, your relationships, or your lifestyle. It's your very sense of identity. You wake up and no longer recognize the version of yourself you used to be. The ambitions you once chased feel foreign. The roles you played, daughter, son, teacher, leader, healer, partner, they all begin to dissolve. And at first it feels like death, because in a way it is. It's the death of the false self, the one you built to survive, to be loved, to succeed, to belong. But here's the truth hardly anyone wants to admit. Awakening is not always about becoming more. It's about unbecoming everything that isn't you. And that process is violent in its honesty. It strips you of your comfort. It tears through your illusions. It exposes every mask you've ever worn. And the more you resist this falling apart, the more painful it becomes. But if you can surrender, even just for a moment, you'll feel something underneath the chaos, a quiet pulse, a subtle knowing that even though everything feels broken, you are being rebuilt on a soul level, not into someone better, into someone truer. One of the most disorienting signs of this shift is the collapse of linear time. You may find yourself forgetting what day it is. Hours pass like minutes or drag like eternities. You begin to feel detached from the calendar, from routines, even from your own memories. It's like your soul is no longer operating on the same clock as the world around you. And that's not a mistake, it's a recalibration. During a dark spiritual shift, your consciousness begins to move beyond the confines of linear time and into what mystics have always called deep time, a state where past, present, and future start to blur. This is why you might suddenly remember a childhood trauma you'd buried for decades, or feel grief for something you haven't lost yet. You're moving through lifetimes of energy and moments. Your soul is clearing density that was never yours to carry. And this can feel overwhelming, even maddening, especially when your logical mind tries to make sense of it. But logic was never meant to lead you through the underworld. Only presence can. So the next time you find yourself lost in the spiral of time, ask yourself, what if I'm not losing control? What if I'm exiting a prison I didn't know I was in? Then there's the emotional volatility. One moment you feel profound peace, like you've touched the edge of the divine. The next, you're drowning in rage, sorrow, or despair. And it doesn't make sense. There's no clear trigger. It's not tied to any external event. It just rises out of nowhere, raw and unfiltered, and demands to be felt. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of the dark shift. We've been taught to fear our emotions, to pathologize them, to manage or suppress them. But in this space, your emotions aren't problems, they're portals. Each wave of feeling is carrying ancient energy, karma, lineage patterns, soul contracts that your system is finally ready to release. And it won't always be graceful. Sometimes it will be loud. Sometimes it will be ugly. Sometimes you'll cry for no reason or scream into your pillow at 3 a.m. And guess what? That's sacred. That's holy. That's the sound of your soul breaking free from centuries of repression. Don't try to make it smaller. Don't try to tidy it up for Instagram. Let it be wild. Let it be real. Because the intensity you're feeling isn't a breakdown, it's birth. And birth is always messy. Another unmistakable sign you're in a rare dark spiritual shift is the sudden surfacing of old wounds you thought you had already healed. You may have spent years doing inner child work, trauma therapy, shadow integration, and yet here they are again, raw and pulsing as if you've never touched them. But this isn't regression. This is depth. You're not going backward, you're going deeper. You see, most healing journeys begin on the surface. We deal with what we can handle. We apply the tools. We soothe the pain. But a rare dark shift pulls you into the root. It reveals the parts of the wound that live in your bones, your blood, your energetic blueprint. This is not about repeating the work. It's about completing it. And to complete it, you must feel it from where it began, not from where it ended. That means revisiting old pain with new eyes. Not to re-traumatize yourself, but to liberate the parts of you that got trapped in those moments. The child, the victim, the rebel, the shadow. All of them are rising now, not to haunt you, but to come home. Can you meet them with compassion instead of shame? Can you hold space for them without trying to fix them? Because healing doesn't always mean changing what happened. Sometimes it just means finally being present for it. And perhaps the most mysterious sign of all is the deep, unshakable sense that something is watching you, not in a paranoid or fearful way, but in a profound, sacred way. You start to feel the presence of something larger moving through your life. You might call it your higher self, your guides, the divine mother, source, God. It doesn't matter what name you give it. What matters is that you feel it, not as an idea, but as a living intelligence orchestrating your transformation. And this presence doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes it shows up in synchronicities, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the unbearable silence that somehow holds you when nothing else can. And even though you're in the dark, Even though you're falling apart, some part of you starts to trust that it's not random, that this pain is not chaos, it's choreography, that this darkness isn't absence, it's alchemy. And the longer you stay in it, the more you begin to feel the edges of your own divinity, not the pretty, polished kind, the raw, wholly naked kind that comes only when everything else has been stripped away. And when that presence meets you in your darkest hour, you realize you were never alone. You are always being led deeper into the fire that forges your truth. The sacred burn, how the fire of darkness refines you into who you were always meant to be. There comes a moment in the dark spiritual shift where the pain no longer feels like punishment. It begins to feel like purification. The fire that once seared your identity now starts to refine your essence. You begin to see that what is being burned away is not your truth, but everything that was suffocating it. And this is the paradox of the sacred burn. It destroys what you thought you needed while revealing what you never knew you had. You lose the relationships that were secretly draining you. You walk away from the roles that kept you locked in performance. You let go of dreams that were never yours to begin with. And yes, it feels like grief. It is grief, not just for what you're losing, but for how long you convinced yourself you needed it. But underneath that grief, something ancient begins to rise. A clarity, a power, a sovereignty that doesn't come from effort or control, but from remembrance. You're not becoming someone new, you're remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And in that remembrance, you begin to reclaim your life, not the one built on survival, but the one rooted in soul. This is when your intuition sharpens into something almost feral. You stop second-guessing yourself. You no longer need to poll 10 people before making a decision. You feel the yes and the no in your bones. You begin to sense energy before it speaks. You walk into a room and immediately know if it aligns or not. And this isn't because you've read more books or followed more spiritual practices. It's because the darkness has stripped away the noise that once drowned your inner voice. You've sat in silence long enough to recognize your own frequency. You've cried enough tears to finally feel what's real. And from this place, your intuition becomes less about guidance and more about embodiment. You don't just ask for direction, you walk as direction. You become the compass. And that changes everything. Because now, you're not just reacting to life, you're co-creating it from your deepest truth. You're no longer outsourcing your knowing. You're no longer living according to other people's lessons. You trust your own path, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else, especially then. But with this deeper knowing comes a deeper responsibility. You can no longer pretend not to see what you see. You can't go back to the old patterns in relationships and pretend they still feel right. You can't betray your soul just to be liked, accepted, or comfortable. This is one of the most sobering parts of the dark shift. It asks you to choose truth over familiarity, integrity over image, depth over convenience. And that often means walking away from what once defined you, not because it's bad, but because it's no longer true. You begin to see that every lie you tell yourself, even the small ones, costs your energy. And at this level of awakening, you can feel those leaks immediately. You can feel the fatigue of pretending, the ache of dimming your light, the tension of saying yes when your whole body is screaming no. And so, you stop, not out of rebellion, but out of reverence. Your life becomes a temple. And in that temple, there is no room for what isn't sacred. Every choice becomes a ritual. Every word becomes a spell. Every action becomes a reflection of the deeper truth you now serve. And that truth is not always easy, but it is always real. Then something even more mysterious happens. You begin to attract people, places, and opportunities that feel like soul echoes. You meet strangers who feel like ancient family. You find yourself in situations that feel orchestrated by something larger. You discover gifts within yourself that were dormant for years, healing hands, visionary dreams, ancestral wisdom, creative expressions that seem to flow from another world. And it's not because you've suddenly become more spiritual. It's because the fire cleared the static. It burned away the blocks. And now the signal is pure, clear, undeniable. This is perhaps the greatest gift of the dark shift, the return of alignment. Not the surface kind that looks good on paper, but the soul-level alignment that makes you feel alive in your bones. You no longer chase. You magnetize. You no longer beg the universe to help you. You trust that you are the universe, expressing itself through your unique thread of consciousness. And from this place, life doesn't get easier, but it becomes infinitely more true. And in truth, there is peace. Not the fluffy kind. The grounded, unwavering peace that comes from knowing, I went through hell and I met myself there. And now I walk with fire in my heart and stars in my hands. The final sign, you become the mirror, and the world begins to change because you did. There's a moment, quiet and unmistakable, when you realize you're no longer trying to escape the darkness. You're not fighting it, not fixing it, not even naming it. You're just with it, breathing with it, walking beside it like an old friend. And that's when the final shift begins to occur. Not outside you, but through you. You stop looking for signs and start becoming one. The people around you begin to respond differently. Not because you're preaching or teaching, but because something in your presence now speaks what words never could. You've become the mirror. And that's the last and most sacred sign of this rare shift. You reflect people back to themselves, not their masks, not their roles, but their essence. And it doesn't always make you popular. In fact, it often makes people uncomfortable. Because your very presence now confronts what others are still avoiding. But it's not your job to be comfortable. It's your role to be clear. Clear in your energy. Clear in your choices. Clear in your being. And when you become that clear, the world around you can't help but shift in response. You stop trying to change the world, and you realize you are it. This isn't about ego. This is about embodiment. You've walked through the fire, and now you carry it with grace. This final stage is not about perfection. It's not about having it all figured out. It's about living from a place so honest, so stripped, so real, that even your flaws become sacred. You no longer seek to impress. You seek to express. You're not chasing healing, you're living as wholeness in progress. You don't need to broadcast your journey, because your energy speaks louder than your story. You're no longer fueled by fear or shame or the need to prove anything to anyone. You've made peace with your shadows. You've accepted your past. You've reclaimed your innocence. And now, every breath is an offering. Every choice is a prayer. You realize that every moment, no matter how ordinary, is an opportunity to live in sacred alignment. You feel the divine not in temples or texts, but in the way you pour your tea, the way you listen without interrupting, the way you say no with love and yes without fear. And in this space, you stop needing signs from the universe because you are the sign. You are the confirmation. You are the miracle that proves transformation is real. And here's the twist. No one tells you. The world doesn't change first. You change. And then everything you see, feel, touch, and know begins to reflect that shift. You still face challenges. You still feel grief, anger, uncertainty. But now, you meet them differently. They don't shake your foundation, they deepen your roots. You stop resisting life's waves and learn to surf them. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start wondering, "What is this awakening in me?" You stop trying to manifest from the ego and start creating from the soul. And the world responds. People start to open around you. Opportunities arise from unexpected places. You speak less but say more. You do less but accomplish more. Why? Because you're no longer fragmented. You're aligned. And alignment is the most magnetic force in the universe. It doesn't chase. It doesn't convince. It simply is. And that beingness, that grounded, silent power, is what transforms lives more than 1,000 teachings ever could. You've become the sermon. You've become the sanctuary. You've become the space where others remember who they are. So if you're in the dark right now, if you're lost, grieving, unraveling, doubting everything you thought you knew, congratulations. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are walking a path that only a few ever dare to tread. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's lonely, but it's also holy. And the deeper you go, the more you'll realize that the darkness was never the enemy. It was the doorway, the initiation, the sacred descent that leads not to despair, but to truth. And in that truth, you don't just find yourself, you remember that you were never separate to begin with. You are the light you've been searching for. You are the answer to your own prayer. And now you carry that light, not to escape the world, but to illuminate it. Quietly, boldly, unapologetically. One breath, one choice, one sacred moment at a time.